It's not drugs that are killing people, it's the poison street drugs that are killing people.
We are building a movement. The drug war has got to end.
There's a battle brewing between police and magic mushroom shops in Vancouver.
We both get hit within a week of each other. That's not a coincidence.
Denying access to a non-toxic supply of drugs violates their constitutional rights.
If people don't have access, then they're just going to die in the streets.
This isn't a question of whether we believe in harm reduction. They went ahead and broke the law.
Defeating that and saving lives means I'm a criminal and I'm going to jail. That's just the way it is.
Anyone who violates the Criminal Code or the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act should expect to face enforcement and criminal charges.
Part 1. The Drug Poisoning Crisis. Across North America, there are soaring numbers of deaths due to the increasing toxicity of the unregulated market in illicit opiates. In British Columbia, Canada, rising deaths due to the toxic drug supply led the provincial government to officially declare a public health emergency in 2016. Since then, this crisis has tragically claimed the lives of over 13,000 British Columbians. Although most of these deaths have occurred in private homes all across the province, the most visible area of public opiate and other drug use is in Vancouver's downtown East Side neighborhood. This is a ghettoized area of just a few blocks, where the city pushes the unhoused, the mentally ill, the drug-addicted, and other marginalized people together. There are often many tents set up, with police and city workers periodically doing sweeps and seizing people's belongings. Because homeless people don't have any privacy, public drug use can commonly be seen here. In the rest of the province, drug use mainly happens indoors. But in the downtown East Side, it often happens on the street.
In the 7th year of this public health emergency, the updates are still so tremendously devastating.
The number of people dying from drug overdoses tripling over the past 5 years.
I've seen so many of my friends just about dying, and if I wasn't there, they would have died.
It's not only about decrim, it's about getting a safe supply. If it's bad dope, we're still dead.
Public health officials in the province have been calling for a safe supply of opiates to be made widely available. But politicians have been slow to act, fearing public backlash and political attacks. Provincial health services do have a program offering hydromorphone pills to a few thousand users. However, with an estimated 250,000 people in the province using illicit opiates, this safe supply is a very small drop in an extremely big bucket. Part 2. Grassroots Safe Supply. In 2020, a coalition of drug users decided to take action and formed a group called the Drug User Liberation Front, or DULF. Following the example of the many cannabis compassion clubs and dispensaries which had offered access to safe medicinal cannabis products in the years before legalization, in May of 2020, DULF founded a compassion club, which offered about 40 members a safe supply of substances including heroin and cocaine. DULF was not secretive about their project. They even held regular public protests where they gave out tested, clean drugs to pre-screened members in front of the police station and other symbolic locations. In May 2023, another activist stepped forward to provide a safer drug supply in an even more public way. Jerry Martin, who had previously run a cannabis compassion club in Saskatchewan, opened the drugstore.
We've opened the world's first drugstore to try and help curb the overdoses and other dangers that happen from drug dealing and drug buying. So,
what are you selling here today?
Cocaine, heroin, meth, and MDMA.
This was a mobile outlet in the downtown East Side which would provide clean and tested drugs, including cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and MDMA.
Someone buying their drugs, it's a lot safer. People have to go through a lot of things to get their drugs. They can be robbed in an alley. Many women get, abused and do different things just to get their drugs, whether they got money or not. So it's going to stop a lot of that. Plus, it's going to stop a lot of the overdoses. People are going to know what they're getting, and it's very important. People that if they buy something, they need to know they're getting that product.
I want to get 4 MDMA.
4 MDMA?
Yes, please. And these are clean, right?
Yeah.
Thanks, man. I appreciate what you're doing. Good luck on this.
There's the opportunity for clean drugs to replace dirty drugs that are killing people, then why not? I think that it can only be a good thing. I mean, I think that there's going to be the contrarians that think that it's just allowing people to do drugs, but the people that don't want to do drugs aren't going to do drugs.
There's no such thing as safe drugs, period. None. There's no. Okay, so if he could do this, I'm going to do it too then, because I'd like to have a condo.
Martin's operation got international media attention in the weeks before he opened. He was raided by police at the end of his first day, when he had closed his kiosk and was alone. He was charged and released with many conditions, including being banned from returning to the downtown east side. After the raid, Martin told his friends he was working to reopen the drugstore. Sadly, Martin died of a drug overdose a few weeks later.
For the amount of times that man has been knocked down in his lifetime, he always got back up. And I think I just thought he'd get back up.
As for the Drug User Liberation Front, after 3 years of open operations, and they're releasing a report showing the success of their project, their club was suddenly raided by Vancouver police in October 2023, and the 2 founders were arrested. Part 3. Raids and arrests.
Part of a downtown Eastside Compassion Club, DULF. It was raided last week and 2 people were arrested.
People need to know what they're using. They buy something off of the street, who knows what it'll be cut with. Somebody who is intending to do cocaine or intending to do meth accidentally gets fentanyl in their drugs, they're going to overdose.
So long as a prohibition of drugs exists and people cannot get drugs in a safe, clean, tested manner, they will continue to die.
DULF's dispensary was raided by police on October 25th, shortly after it had become a major topic in the provincial legislature. Members of the BC United Party had been attacking the governing New Democratic Party over DULF having received a grant for $200,000 from the Provincial Health Authority. Although DULF had been operating openly for over 3 years, it seemed politicians were only now becoming aware of their Compassion Club project. The BC United Party's drug policy critic, former RCMP Sergeant Eleanor Sturco, claimed the government had been giving DULF money to buy drugs for their Compassion Club.
This government is saying we have to do everything that we can because they're trying to save lives, and that would somehow justify supporting organizations that are putting money and guns into the hands of people that kill British Columbians through gang activity.
Why are taxpayer dollars going to a group called the Drug User Liberation Front that is supporting, frankly, organized crime by buying these drugs on the dark web and then trafficking them here in British Columbia?
The DULF founders, Jeremy Calicum and Eris Nix, denied these allegations. They showed that the money used to purchase Safe Supply came solely from crowdsourced funding and not from government grants.
All funds that we use to buy currently illicit narcotics come from crowdsourced funding.
That money went to run an overdose prevention site and pay rent on their storefront. And Vancouver Coastal Health keeps a very close watch on where that money goes. You know, it goes directly to those expenses. So there's no way any of that money could have been used to buy drugs or whatever. That was done through private donations.
As an organization that wants to keep people safe, we don't have access to legal supplies of drugs. But getting it from a regulated supplier that does not benefit organized crime is our preference, and I think it's what everybody wants.
If Health Canada wanted or was able to, they could grant a license that would have allowed the Drug Users Liberation Front to obtain substances from pharmaceutical alternative locations, so from pharmaceutical companies. But they didn't do that. It wasn't granted, but they went ahead and broke the law.
DULF had previously applied to Health Canada for an exemption so that they could operate legally, but it was denied.
We recently wrote a request to the federal government, Health Canada, asking them to give us exemptions to operate this club.
We asked the federal government to give us permission to go and obtain the drugs legally and get them from pharmaceutical companies. The federal government said no.
Part 4. Mushroom Dispensaries raided. Just 1 week after the raid on DULF, police launched a coordinated set of raids against 4 other shops operating in Vancouver.
There's a battle brewing between police and magic mushroom shops in Vancouver that could eventually end up in court.
See, there's cops here. They're doing a raid on all 3 of our locations today. This is very unexpected.
On November 1st, police raided 3 mushroom dispensaries across the city, all founded by longtime activist Dana Larsson. An unlicensed cannabis dispensary founded by Larsson was also raided at the same time. Larsson is well known in Vancouver as an activist and organizer. He played a major role in the rise and proliferation of unlicensed cannabis dispensaries in Vancouver and across Canada in the years before legalization. Larsson had become known for activism like helping found the BC Marijuana Party, mailing marijuana buds to politicians including Justin Trudeau, and being a main organizer of Vancouver's annual 420 protests.
Are we going to legalize marijuana here in British Columbia with the Sensible Policing Act? Will you join me in this crusade to make this dream come true?
He once spent the night in jail in Calgary in 2016 for giving away millions of cannabis seeds while on a national tour called Overgrow Canada. Although mainly associated with cannabis, Larsson has always maintained support for ending prohibition and drug war. In 2019, he founded a free community service called Get Your Drugs Tested, funded with revenue from his cannabis dispensaries. It has since analyzed over 60,000 drug samples, with all test results listed on their website.
We also operate a program called Get Your Drugs Tested, which is where all the money from our cannabis and mushroom shops go, and we're the biggest and free street drug analysis center in the world, and we're actually opening our second location just a few days.
Get Your Drugs Tested in Vancouver says fentanyl continues to be the most common, potentially deadly substance they find. They are also seeing xylazine show up in testing.
The challenges with this is that it's not something people are expecting. In fact, people will come in with what they think is fentanyl, and the fentanyl has xylazine in it. So not even the fentanyl supply is clean, if that makes sense.
Larsson told the media that he had been one of the biggest financial supporters of DULF, donating several $1,000s towards their effort to create a safe drug supply.
I'm a big supporter of DULF, and I think it's not a coincidence that they were raided and we were raided within 1 week of each other. They raided 3 of our dispensaries and our cannabis shop. They came in here and trashed our place and took all of our products, even though we've got a meeting with the city, a hearing with the city on December 6th.
Larsson had been openly running his main mushroom dispensary location in East Vancouver for over 3 years, with a business license that the city had continued to renew annually. Larsson says police officers had come into his dispensary dozens of times since he opened.
We have the VPD, the Vancouver Police, come in here fairly regularly. They want to look at our video footage from the street sometimes. We have cameras around and they want to see some crime was committed or something happened. They'll come in. We always are happy to support them and share our video footage and help them in that regard.
His second location has also received a business license before opening. However, city officials had subsequently ordered that license to be taken away. There was a hearing scheduled for December where city councilors would decide the fate of the dispensary business license, but the city unexpectedly canceled that hearing at the last minute. It is now expected to be rescheduled for February or March 2024.
From the police talking to the media previously, they'd made it clear they weren't planning on raiding shops like ours. They would let the city bureaucracy deal with it.
Back in 2015, when unlicensed cannabis dispensaries had become commonplace in Vancouver, city police issued a comprehensive report on the issue. The police said that using criminal law to raid cannabis dispensaries was ineffective, raised concerns about proportionality, and was a major drain on police resources. So why the sudden rush to raid these mushroom shops 3 years after opening?
That's got to be 2,000 hours of police work and over $160,000 in police budget spent shutting down or trying to attack our mushroom shops. It's not going to work. We're going to reopen.
Didn't take long for Dana Larsson to reopen one of his 3 magic mushroom shops that are scattered around the city.
Larsson spent 7 hours in police custody but was released without charges. He immediately returned to his shops and reopened the main location the next day. The other 2 locations were reopened a few days later.
Typically with these kind of raids, they don't usually lay charges. The prosecutors usually decide not to because it's expensive. It's unlikely a judge is going to want to put me in jail for a long time for doing this kind of work. And we could potentially win a constitutional challenge and actually change the laws in our favor and get a positive decision.
There is still the possibility that Larsson could face criminal charges, but he says he is not deterred by the risks. Larsson also claims the raids were politically motivated to target prominent activists.
This is a politically motivated raid.
There's a reason why they're targeting us. And this happened 1 week after the raid on the Drug User Liberation Front, a group I very much support. This is clearly about, I think, from the BC NDP, from my friends in the BC NDP, I think they're feeling embarrassed. The BC United have been attacking them on safe supply, about DULF, about dispensaries, and I think that they called the cops and told them to do this raid.
Larsson says he thinks the Vancouver police were responding to outside pressure in the raids against him and DULF. However, the police spokesperson denied this allegation.
The search warrants that we executed today were part of an investigation that predated the investigation related to DULF, the Drug User Liberation Front. They're not connected.
Part 5. Politics and Resistance. In the months leading up to the raids, there had been a flurry of political attention around DULF, with politicians attacking the Compassion Club and disavowing any knowledge of their operations. Yet DULF had been operating openly since May 2000.
Beyond just subsidizing deadly drugs, now he wants to decriminalize crack, heroin, cocaine. This policy is insane. It is killing people.
Will the Premier take full responsibility and accountability for the NDP's taxpayer-funded drug trafficking and ensure his government's absolute cooperation with the ongoing police investigation?
In no way, shape, or form were any of those funds intended for the purchase of illegal drugs, and the member knows that.
I find it really troubling that the opposition is politicizing an issue that's costing 13,000 people to die in British Columbia to this date.
Former RCMP officer Eleanor Sturco, serving as the drug policy critic for the BC United Party, became a leading voice against DULF.
The reality is that this government partnered with an organization that was buying illicit drugs off the dark web. But there hasn't been any police investigation. There hasn't even been any looking into it by this government.
The police are not supposed to be minions of politicians. The police are supposed to set their own priorities. They were given orders or political pressure to do this raid.
It is deeply concerning when a politician continues to reiterate statements of which there is no evidence, like the statements that are being made about the Compassion Club presently.
There is no way that this should come as a surprise to the Premier. The Premier has ignored, dismissed, and hand-waved this issue, and now there's a criminal investigation. Will the Premier order a forensic audit of the government's funding to Vandu, to DULF, and other organizations that are involved in criminal activity and funded by the government?
Our governments are not taking the action that is needed. If someone who is a member of the opposition wanted to be acting to call that into question, they would be saying, why aren't you rapidly expanding safe supply? Why aren't you moving towards non-prescription models? Why aren't you saving lives today?
It's going to harm sick people that rely on access to these substances to deal with chronic and critical ailments.
A lot of it is used for medicinal uses, and it's something that isn't harming anybody.
I'm very disappointed in the Vancouver police having taken this step. I hope the people of Vancouver let our politicians and police know they do not support these kind of raids now or in the future.
A few weeks after the raids on DULF and the mushroom dispensaries, local supporters of Safe Supply rallied together in solidarity with the Drug User Liberation Front.
Safe Supply! Or we die! Safe Supply! Or we die!
The protesters gathered to voice their opposition to the DULF raid, calling for Calicum and Nix to have their charges dropped. Speakers advocated for an end to the drug war and the right for all people to have access to a safe supply of drugs.
What is happening in Vancouver is shameful. How is possible that people continue dying because we don't have safe supply for drugs?
Today, we are building a movement to fight the right and to say the drug war has got to end.
225,000 British Columbians who use drugs risk death at any time if no action is taken.
For once, our community did not have to resort to the toxic drug supply created by these prohibitionist laws. For once, we were given the chance to live.
Since May of 2020, DULF has provided over 3 kilograms of substances to its members, preventing approximately $100,634 in profits from falling into the hands of organized crime. DULF's overdose prevention site has recorded 0 overdoses out of 741 uses. When comparing to 2017 inside overdose rates per injection of 9.5 overdoses per 1,000 uses, the DULF rate is notably lower.
Why are we saying that people who use drugs are bad or that drugs are bad? This is just something we've been taught for 100 years. It is not actually based in fact, and we need to be thinking about this at a bigger level because people are dying.
Part 6. Pushing back and growing stronger. In the weeks after the raid, Eleanor Sturko has continued to attack the activists and drug users trying to protect their community. On December 4th, Dana Larsson opened a second storefront for the free community Get Your Drugs Tested program, located right next to one of his recently raided mushroom dispensaries. Eleanor Sturko complained that Larsson's service had been certified as an overdose prevention site by local health authorities. This certification allows the staff to handle small amounts of illegal drugs for analysis purposes. Sturko demanded that Larsson's service be decertified and closed. Larsson publicly challenged Sturko, explaining that his service received no government funding and was doing about 2/3 of all drug analysis in the province. Larsson also pointed out that the dangerous drug alerts which Sturko often tweeted and reposted had been coming from samples analyzed by his Get Your Drugs Tested service. Larsson even publicly invited Sturko to visit the Get Your Drugs Tested centers, but she refused his offer to visit and see the operations for herself. As 2023 comes to an end, British Columbia is on track to break its own record for deaths caused by toxic drug supply. Uncontrolled drug toxicity remains the leading cause behind overdoses in the province, exceeding the number of deaths caused by homicides, suicides, accidents, and natural diseases combined. Advocating for a safer supply of drugs is essential in prioritizing public health. It minimizes risks associated with substance use while fostering a compassionate approach to addressing addiction. By shifting the narrative from punishment to harm reduction, we can create a safer and more inclusive society that values the well-being of every individual and empowers communities to address substance use through compassionate, evidence-based approaches.
We do have the capacity to save people's lives. They do not have to die.
DULF founders Jeremy Calicum and Eris Nix have been keeping a low profile since the raid, with neither one being available for media interviews. Dana Larsson, on the other hand, has been defiantly vocal since the raid. In mid-December, Larsson posted a video of himself sending a gram of psilocybe mushroom and a gram of coca leaf to Eleanor Sturko and to every other member of the BC legislature.
Just to let these MLAs know what we're doing, to ask them to stop raiding us. They're all getting 1 gram of golden teacher and 1 gram of coca leaves in the mail. Hopefully a few of these members of the legislature will try these mushrooms, and maybe that'll help to open their minds to new ideas around drug policy and lead them to reject the model of prohibition and punishment and drug war and move towards a new era of drug peace, of legal access, of safe supply, and of sensible drug policies in Vancouver and British Columbia and all across Canada.
BC United South Surrey MLA Eleanor Sturko got a late Christmas present sent to her office. It's not the usual gift you'd find under the Christmas tree.
This looks like psilocybin mushrooms, a gram, and this looks like a coca leaf. So this is coming to me in a Christmas card, which I find also offensive.
Longtime drug advocate Dana Larsson sent the package to all the BC MLAs. It came with directions on how to use the drugs and a letter asking to update drug policies and to use their political influence to discourage further police raids to his operations.
Well, first of all, I don't have the ability to use my political influence to interfere in police investigations whatsoever.
I think it's important for people, not only our elected officials, but all Canadians, to be able to touch and understand what these substances really are.
At his Coca Leaf Cafe on East Hastings Street, Larsson says he sent the packages to advocate for change.
Sometimes we can forget the plant-based origins of these medicines, and I think that going back to that, providing the things we do here of whole coca leaf, of whole psilocybin mushrooms and things like that, I think that's part of the solution to the war on drugs.
This goes beyond even just trafficking drugs. This is also, I find this to be an issue of harassment as well. I don't appreciate getting these. I think that it's outrageous that someone would be bold enough to send this kind of crap in the mail.
Sturkle handed the drugs over to the RCMP. She's been in touch with other MLAs and will be in contact with the BC government.
What does 2024 hold for the future of drug war and drug peace in Vancouver? The movement to replace prohibition and drug war with safe supply and drug peace is growing stronger every day. No doubt there will be many more drug poisoning deaths, but also new grassroots efforts to provide a community-based safe supply. Mushroom dispensaries and psychedelic shops will no doubt continue to proliferate in Vancouver and across Canada, following the trail blazed by cannabis dispensaries in the years before legalization. Both history and our modern experience make it clear that prohibition and drug war are failed policies. During the years when alcohol was prohibited, deaths from poisoned liquor soared. At the same time, organized crime thrived, public drunkenness became commonplace, and police were utterly unable to enforce the law. Now we face an almost identical situation with opiates. Just like alcohol prohibition made it far easier to get poisonous methyl alcohol than it was to get a glass of beer, so too has opiate prohibition made it far easier to get deadly fentanyl than it is to get a cup of opium tea. This is the exact opposite of what good drug policy should strive for. The solution, then, was the same solution we must face now. Deaths from poisoned liquor stopped as soon as alcohol prohibition was replaced with a safe and regulated alcohol supply. Alcohol users were encouraged to drink responsibly, with regulations and laws focusing on safer use with reasonable restrictions. Ending alcohol prohibition also meant that liquor smuggling gangs fell apart. Police stopped wasting time on pointless raids against speakeasies, and Canadian communities became safer for everyone. Will we ever have for opiates what we now have for alcohol, tobacco, and cannabis? As long as prohibition and drug war continue, the misery and death will only increase. Thanks for watching. If you want to support the Drug Users Liberation Front in their fight for safe drug supply, follow the links in the description and don't forget to like and subscribe for future updates.